How's it going? Welcome back to a very special video today. Today we're going to discuss something that I hold very close to my heart. Yes, that might sound a little bit crazy. It might sound like, oh, I'm a Dark Souls otaku, and you wouldn't be wrong, because I love Dark Souls. Someone help me, I need help! These are my little Dark Soul figures that I painted myself. I can show you them at the end of the video if you actually care about that, which you probably don't. I wouldn't blame you, but stick around until the end of the video if you want to have a nice close look at it, because I'm very cool. Okay. How's it going? Welcome back to a very special video with your majestic host, The Savior. And today is going to be a cozy yearly review video. Now, I've ordered my channel into proper playlists now on the home screen, so I've got all of my yearly game reviews now, all in order, and basically it's retrospective gaming content, but with a new perspective, as if the game was coming out now, and some philosophical analysis on it. Also, you can check out the other playlists, like my music, my philosophy videos. That's what we do here. If you are new, I do gaming and philosophy, so if you like that type of thing, please do consider subscribing. Become a wise one today. You don't want to miss out, trust me. We're getting so close to 10k, and I just love this community. I love what we're doing. Every single day I'm thinking about YouTube because I'm a madman, but I just love this community and what we're doing, so please help support an independent creator. I'm not some big gaming journalist, and I will never shill out or anything like that, so do consider supporting this community, become one of us. We're trying to do something great here, build up a movement, bring back old school YouTube, and yeah, just support the video, give it a like, that actually helps the YouTube algorithm, and consider dropping a small donation so I can keep doing this, or checking out my music. That's all I have to say. Now let's crack on and take a look at Dark Souls 3 in 2024. So this video is for people who are thinking about playing Dark Souls 3 in 2024, and basically giving Dark Souls 3 a 2024 review, updating it, looking at how this game compares to something like Elden Ring now, and just analyzing this game in detail. And I will give you my philosophical perspective on the game towards the end of the video as well. So a little bit of a backstory. I'm kind of late to the Dark Souls series. I actually only got into the first one around 2 years, maybe 3 years ago now. No, like 2 years ago. So I was kind of late into it. And when I first played Dark Souls, you know, I gave it a try many times when I was a teenager, but it never clicked with me. I was immature. My brain was, you know, like a monkey, and it wasn't fully developed. And yeah, I just couldn't get into Dark Souls. No matter how many times I tried, I couldn't quite see the vision. But a couple of years ago, it really clicked with me. And I'm not going to go into a whole, you know, personal story and tell you how Dark Souls saved my mother from the brink of suicide. She was right on the cusp of just downing gallons and gallons of Tide Pods, okay? I'm not going to talk about that. Because there's too many videos out there like, oh, Dark Souls cured my erectile dysfunction. Dark Souls made me reunite with my long-lost brother. You know, all of that kind of stuff. But I don't want to be cliche, but there's a reason why there's so many videos out there that are saying Dark Souls changed my life, or Dark Souls is like a spiritual awakening, all that stuff. And there's a reason why Dark Souls became my favorite game, or at least in the top 5 of all-time games for me, because Dark Souls is more than a game. And I know that sounds cliche, but Dark Souls is art. Okay, it is a transcendent experience, and that's not because of its amazing graphics or its art style or even its level design, which is amazing, especially in the first game. Dark Souls offers something that no other media can, which most people don't really understand or talk about. Dark Souls is the only video game that I've ever played that blends the physical universe and the lore of that world into the gameplay, okay? And most games, even if it's, done very well, something truly immersive, it still has a slight disconnect. But Dark Souls is so immersive, and it draws you in so well, and it blends all of the gameplay mechanics that actually are explained within the universe, that you never even stop to question it. It all just makes sense. And of course, there's a reason why Dark Souls spawned a whole series of games, and we've now got Souls-like games, and that's because of the difficulty and the fact that you have to keep pushing, and you have to have a strong will of character to get through these games. That's why Dark Souls is so popular. But I am afraid that if we continue to get, Souls-likes, and we continue just to see other developers basically borrow or steal ideas from Dark Souls, that it won't feel special anymore. It will be like Metroidvania, games, and the special mechanics that made Dark Souls so special won't seem important or different anymore, and that's what I'm afraid of. But no other game, even that tries to replicate it, and some games have succeeded in replicating it very well, like Bloodborne or Lies of P, but there's something about Dark Souls that stands apart from all of the rest. Now, if you are a wise one and you've watched my other content, you will know that I've actually made a video discussing why Dark Souls 2 is actually my favorite Souls game, and in many ways it still is. I do think that game is criminally underrated and misunderstood, especially because of just like how detailed it is with its lighting, its gameplay mechanics that you have to really master. And yes, of course it is a little bit janky, but as an overall experience, of course Dark Souls 1 holds a very special place in my heart, because it just has such a great blend of level design and gameplay that feed into each other, everything being interconnected and all that kind of stuff. That's why Dark Souls 1 is so beloved, of course. But Dark Souls 3, I think that is objectively the best Dark Souls game, because it just marriages all of the ideas from 1 and 2 and a little bit of Bloodborne, and it just makes the perfect Souls game.
I've seen your kind, time and time again.
I know not the missteps which led thee to this painted world. Return from whence thou camest.
When the world rots, we set it afire. It's the one thing we do right.
So if you haven't played Dark Souls 3, why should you play Dark Souls 3 in 2024? That's what I hope to answer in this Dark Souls 3 2024 review for people who haven't touched it. Now, to me, Dark Souls is just far above Elden Ring, and I've discussed that in my long, massive critique of Elden Ring. As much as that's a good game, don't get me wrong, Dark Souls is a much better curated experience. There's no easy way to just cheat or cheese in Dark Souls. Of course there are ways, but it's a curated experience. You can't just get past everything by using a magical annoying little goat. A great quote from Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic Roman emperor, that I take a lot of inspiration from, is what stands in the way becomes the way. And I think that summarizes the experience of Dark Souls so well, and especially with Dark Souls 3. The difficulty here is greater, I would say, than that of Elden Ring, but it's still more fair. You don't just get a bunch of spamming bosses or anything like that. You really have to learn the moveset. That's what Dark Souls is all about, learning the moveset, and to a degree it is with Elden Ring, but of course you can bypass a lot of enemies in Elden Ring with a lot of different ways. I'm not going to get into that. But what makes Dark Souls 3 so special is the way it ties into the first game. The callbacks, the history, the lore, all of the little details. If you're jumping straight into Dark Souls 3, you will be missing a lot if you haven't played the first game. but I do think it is the most polished experience for people who just want a Souls experience after Elden Ring or something like that. Of course, most people will go into Dark Souls 3 because it's the newer game, the combat is a lot faster. I personally like the slower approach with Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, but I'm not going to deny that the combat here isn't good. So Dark Souls 3 is a good starting point for people who want to get into Dark Souls in 2024. But I do think they did add a lot. That is the reason why so many people are going back to Dark Souls 3, and that's because the combat is a lot faster, you can roll around a lot quicker. So from people coming from Elden Ring playing Dark Souls 3, of course they're going to feel more comfortable and at home with that combat system. Also, it added an FP meter, okay, and the FP stands for focus points, and this is a new meter that you have to manage, like your stamina and your health. So now you can actually pull off special and interesting moves with different weapon types, but you have to be careful because if you're also playing as a mage or a spell sword or something like that, that will take down your magic meter as well, because it's all intertwined. So there's a lot of stuff that Dark Souls 3 added. The bosses, I feel, are more well defined and different and stand apart, even compared to Dark Souls 1 and especially 2 and especially Elden Ring. So Dark Souls 3 is the superior Souls experience in my opinion, because the variation of the enemies, the bosses that are so well thought out and interesting, the lore and the history and the callbacks, all of that stuff is great. It doesn't quite have the same magic and intertwined level design as the first game, but Dark Souls 3 is special in the way that it feels like an open world game without it actually being a full open world game. It does have that magic of the first game when you see something in the distance and you can actually go there, you can actually, you know, travel to that location. One of the big wow factors for me was basically in the first area, pretty much, when you're getting shot at by this giant with, you know, shooting giant arrows at you, and you can see him far away in the tower, and you can actually get there and then befriend the giant or choose to kill him. And that's what I love about Dark Souls 3 compared to something like Elden Ring. It respects your consequences. Not as much as the first game, which I really felt like did such a good job of just throwing you in this world and not telling you anything. You know, you can just kill the blacksmith and get absolutely screwed for it. A lot of characters are protected now because they are in this hub area. I love the openness of the first game, where you can just meet characters and decide their fate. But Dark Souls 3 does have a lot of choices in it, and it's got so many unique hidden areas. Like when you're up in the tower, you can actually find an elevator, and then there's a hidden area to it, and a whole mini boss, and a whole like I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't played it, but you get this whole little co-op moment with one of the best characters in the Souls series, and stuff like that really makes this a magical game to me. So should you play Dark Souls 3 in 2024? Well, yes, of course you should, especially if you've never played it before. This is the definitive Souls experience, I would say, from an objective standpoint, even though I do prefer the first one and the second one to some degree. But as an overall package, yes, I do think Dark Souls 3 is the better game. I love all of them, of course, but so it's pretty difficult to rank them. But Dark Souls 3 does offer a lot of refinement, and especially coming off of Elden Ring, it is very refreshing, because basically you think you've mastered the combat system, you haven't, okay? Dark Souls 3 really tests your patience, and it's about skill. It's not about like the level of your character or the level of your weapon or what weapon you have. Of course it can be like that if you grind, but if you're playing organically, in Dark Souls there is no way that you can now just branch off and find a new area and fight a new boss like in Elden Ring. So going back to this in 2024 might be a bit of shock for some players, especially if you've never played it before. But I think if you have played it before, you will find it very refreshing, because there's something about meeting an obstacle and, you know, having to motivate yourself to fight that obstacle. You know, life is suffering, as the Buddha says, and you can't just get your way with everything. You have to overcome obstacles, and by doing that you transform yourself as a person. It does make you a better person. It is all about the self-fulfilling prophecy of self-improvement and the Übermensch becoming better. So that is why Dark Souls is special. But I do think Dark Souls 3 stands above just because of the art style. The locations are now more refined. They went even more crazy with, you know, what you can actually explore in this world. It's not all just, you know, like painting and, like window dressing. Now you can actually go a lot. Now you can actually explore these locations, which are much bigger compared to the first game and the second game. I feel like Dark Souls 3 doubled down on the player agency, because that's what Dark Souls is also well known for. It's a great RPG, not in the sense of, choices and consequences and dialogue, but in the fact that this is just a game. This is gameplay first. It's no cinematic bullshit or anything like that. And you can create the character that you want and playing the way that you want. You can literally bash people to death with shield if you want, if you just want to be a giant shield. And Dark Souls 3 really goes in on that with its customization and the different build variation that the first two games don't have as much, I would say. And finally, let's quickly discuss the philosophy of Dark Souls 3 and my perspective on this, especially after playing, newer modern day games, Elden Ring and stuff like that, going back to when games were pretty fresh and creative still, and it wasn't all about chasing, the money and what is going to be the most safe and profitable bet, which modern day gaming has become, unfinished games, all that stuff. FromSoftware, luckily, are one of the few developers that are still, intact. And even though I do feel like Elden Ring degraded the Souls experience, it is its own unique thing, so I can forgive it for that, and it is still a good game. But Dark Souls 3 was, pretty much perfection. The music, which even has meaning within the game, and the universe, and the story, down to its writing, its characters, it's all well thought out, and the world design, the art style here is very good, on par with the first one, and the creature designs are, almost a step above it, but it's the decay and the sadness of Dark Souls 3 which makes it even more special. Dark Souls is always about that lonely feeling that you get and the kind of melancholy that you feel, but you kind of harness it to become your strength. Because at the end of the day, of course, we as human beings, we like to think that we are connected to society, but society simply shapes us, and not always for the best. Just because we are herd animals doesn't mean that we should always follow the herd. So Dark Souls is about, becoming aware that you are this single consciousness in the universe, and no matter how much you feel like you can connect to another person, eventually you are, by yourself, and it's up to you to have the motivation not to go hollow, to have the will and the strength to keep pushing forward and not lose your sanity in this world of decay. These games span a lot of time within the universe, and you can see that time affect the game world, and we just don't get many experiences like that where it truly transports you to another world. And Dark Souls 3, more than anything else, is about the decay of the universe, and if the universe even has any inherent meaning, or if it's all just your own inherent meaning and the goals that you set that matter. The first game is very special because it makes you question, if you can even trust the authority figures that are within the universe, like the, snake things, I can't remember what they're called, but there's two of them, both telling you different sides of the story, different sides of the prophecy, if you will. And the final game, Dark Souls 3, is special because it's about tearing down the legend and the lies that society tells us. What happens to a world and a society in decay when your character loses all, when who you are as a person loses all meaning and you simply become a character, that is your sole being now, being a trader, being a knight, you have to hold on to some kind of identity. Dark Souls 3 especially breaks down all of these barriers that, kind of groups us into this well-defined box that society and culture is built around, and it strips it all down into this culture decay, and still, asking the question, do you have the strength to, prevail? Do you have the strength to continue? That's what makes Dark Souls such a transformative experience, and for many, it leads them to feeling empowered, knowing that you can get through the suffering and the difficult times, and, the enemies are tough, the bosses are tough, so mastering it, not being able to escape like you can in Elden Ring, makes Dark Souls 3 a very special game. It's just so beautifully done. The music and the lack of music that, emphasizes the hollow and empty nature of the series. And for people who give up, for people who can't get through this game, I do believe personally that they are more likely to be nihilistic or lack the, willpower, the strength of character to do something that they, care about in life. And that's crazy that, a game can actually tell you something about yourself, your personality, and what you care about. So that's why Dark Souls 3 is a masterpiece. And if you haven't played it and you've only played some other newer Souls games, I definitely recommend going back to it. Of course, play the first game if you can, but if you just want the best objective Souls experience, Dark Souls 3 in 2024 is worth it 100%. And I do hope you enjoyed this Dark Souls 3 2024 review. I'm just so happy to go back and talk about this game because it is very special, and I hope people don't forget about this game and the series because they are some of the best games ever made. And as From Software continues from 2024 and beyond, I don't know what games they're going to make next, we have to remember that these games really bridge the divide between what, gaming media can be about. Because often I feel like games have become shallow entertainment and I don't really care about a lot of new AAA games anymore. But then you have these beautiful pieces of art like Dark Souls, and it's important to remember that. So I do hope you enjoyed this Dark Souls 3 2024 review, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a great day, and don't go hollow. Peace out. Well done, you've made it until the end of the video. I'm proud of you. Make sure that you do like and subscribe and share this video. Liking the video and leaving a comment does help, so I appreciate it. So I'm just going to show you a few of the Dark Souls figures that I have painted myself. It's nice to do something with my hands, if you know what I mean. A little bit of... Okay, anyway. But yeah, I don't usually do this, but it's only because I love Dark Souls so much that I did this. And sorry about the dust. It has built up over time. I should probably dust them at some point. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not a professional painter, and this is the first time doing something like this. So I kind of gave it my own creative vision as well. So as you can see, I tried to do some blood effects, which was kind of cool, and the wood and kind of a little bit of overgrowth, the green and stuff on it. And then I just did like a green base. His boots, some metal I added onto it, and I did quite a few coats to actually give him like a rustic metal look instead of the stone look, because I like that more. And his leather pouch and all that stuff, and some kind of green overgrowth on him. Again, it's not like amazing, but I'm not a professional painter, and yeah, just something I enjoy doing, but it's pretty cool. This is my favorite one. This one was, I think, the first one I ever did, and I spent ages on its eyes because it's quite difficult to get right. But again, yeah, it's pretty dusty and kind of muddy feet. But I think that one came out quite well, and I tried to, bridge the gap between like the mud getting on him and kind of whitish tone to the mushroom guy. And this is a work in progress, Artorias. Shit. I'm still trying to decide like what kind of color paint I should add to him. I kind of like this pink feel. This is kind of more accurate, a little bit darker, but that's the whole fun of doing it, is you don't have to follow exactly the character's design. You can give it your own design, which I think is pretty cool. And this is one of the little forest figures. Again, I added some blood on it, and I didn't have many colors, so it's a little bit like the color of his trousers is a little bit crazy. And then we got a little baby mushroom, very simple. I don't think it has any eyes, no. But anyway, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm a Dark Souls nerd. Thanks for watching. Whoa.